everyone? Otsukimi here. This is the Knowhere Market Update. This is the bigger, larger update that I do typically for Knowhere Discord, but this is available for all people. This is going to be posted on X and YouTube and other platforms. So if you are coming from a different platform, I do recommend that you check out my Discord. I'll give you a link in my description of this video. So that way you can check it out. It is free to join. Everything in there is currently free. I do plan to have some premium services, but you will get plenty of updates on that if that changes. So it's free to join. And honestly, the whole point of the Discord is just to give someone a place that they can go to for two reasons. One, so they can contact me directly. There was lots of issues in years past, especially for the past, maybe year, since I've been traveling and things like that, to organize all my messages. I used to get them from everywhere, and so this is a place that you can go to talk to me. You can tag me. You can send me requests. I may or may not answer them, but that is the place that they go to. Okay, and so in addition to that, I do a request day, which is on Tuesdays, and I just did one yesterday, where you can request charts. It's just one day, usually one time of that day as well, where I do a video answering your questions. And so it's a lot of people. I don't know of any decently reputable person that does that for free. I know a few people now that I'm thinking about it. That's why I hesitated. But generally speaking, it's something that I'm offering to do. That's going to stay free even if I do offer premium services as well. I also have a 10-minute video every Sunday through Thursday, so covering basically the crypto market open, quote unquote, for Monday through Friday, and so that's about 8 to 10 minutes long, covering these top assets right here from Bitcoin all the way down to Dogecoin, not GRT. This is something I'm looking at for today. But overall, I got those as well. I got observations with Otsu on Mondays, and then I got this video, Knowhere Market Update, on Wednesdays. I do plan to add some topical videos, but I just haven't had a time to fill it in. So I hope so relatively soon. I think I might just delay that until the holiday season because I'm so jam-packed with other things as well. I got my bots coming, some preliminaries. I'll just get into them. I got my Arun Pro bots. I'm going to have a beta version this week, probably on Friday. Very, very simple, maybe just for Bitcoin and Ethereum, just to get that kind of, the wheels rolling on that one. And then I got Knowhere Premium, which will be a paid alternative to my Knowhere Discord, which is going to be just a lot of extra things, more videos, more requests, more charts, and probably small caps and things like that. It's quite interesting. The group is really developing very naturally and organically. We just opened a channel for mining, and I'm not a mining expert at all. I know nothing about mining, but a few of my followers do, and so we have open discussion about mining. Small caps are coming next. There was a lot of, I think, roughly about 20% of the people in the Discord, roughly, or no, maybe about 10%, are interested in small caps. So we like actual real interest in small caps. So I think we're going to open discussions for that as well, and I have a lot of insights for that. In addition to that, we might also open a small channel or two for NFTs. That was something that came up today, so we will look at that. So a lot of variety of things, and I know I don't want to spread myself too thin. That's why I'm making it a little more natural, and we'll see where that goes. But overall, that's why I have it. Honestly, the second reason I have it is so we can all learn. Okay, and me included too. Like I'm not perfect by any means. And honestly, the best way that I can learn, even after 8 years of trading, is to help engage with you guys and answer your questions, because I can answer those questions. I'm not a newbie trader. I'm not. And so sometimes I feel like I do trade like a newbie trader still. And sometimes newbie traders trade better than experienced traders. So anyway, the thing is, we can, learn from each other in every way. So sometimes me trying to explain simple things will help me understand what I already know in a better way by trying to refine how to explain that. And so that's one of the hidden gems as an educator, by the way, is like you get to know more about what you already know, like, and you get to polish that. And it's really cool. So anyway, community, that's what it's there for. Anyway, stop talking about that. This is the Knowhere Market Update. Basically, I'm going to do a quick view on Bitcoin. It hasn't really changed too much in the past 2 or 3 days. And then we're going to go into Ethereum because we do want to talk about Ethereum. But I'm mainly going to spend a lot of this video on altcoins. And I don't have any narrative structure like I usually do for observations. It's almost going to be pure altcoins. I think I'll more, in replace of that, I think I'll discuss like Bitcoin pairs, ETHBTC, kind of going on to that. I might cover Bitcoin dominance, I feel like. It's kind of go into that range. And we got FOMC in about 2 hours. And so I'll try to keep this short, but also very informational. So anyway, that's all I got for the preliminaries. So let's just dive right in. All right, so first things first, we're going to do Bitcoin. I think we'll go ahead and do Bitcoin dominance as well. And I think we'll also cover ETHBTC as well. But we'll do Bitcoin dominance in one go. So going on the daily, so we had a big push up yesterday. A lot of people were not prepared for that. Honestly, I was really quite surprised. And so I don't know if I just don't talk about it enough or what's going on, but this fake out that we had was pretty clear as day for me. So one thing I had talked about earlier this week, honestly, even later last week, was this fake out. And so when this was occurring, when this drop down was coming down, I had assumed that this would possibly be a fake out based on some other things. I've got probably 2 or 3 videos based off of this, so I don't want to do too much analysis because I've explained that, and this is more of an altcoin video. But one thing that we did see, that I personally saw, was kind of this liquidity area. If you take the two, honestly, it was really down to this wick right here, and so this is this is what I call a swing low order block, where you take the low for the close for this and the low for the next one, and then you make a liquidity area, and that's kind of what we got. Okay, and so I used that to kind of realize, okay, well, there's a chance that we could fake out here, and it's not so much a fake out. I don't want to make it sound like I knew exactly what was going to happen. The reason I thought it was going to be a fake out is because I thought it would bounce off of the liquidity support, and when you get something where you have a bounce from here. So a lot of people think that we're going to bounce pretty much after here. We basically did. But when you have another structure like this, you need to retest this area, which is kind of how like springs occur, by the way. I don't have time to get into that, but a spring is basically like you have a set of lows or even lower lows, and then you have a third or a final low, but it's way lower than the actual structure itself. And so, but then it comes back up. And so people interpret that as a spring. And springs, or fake outs, is what I call them, basically same difference. They happen quite a bit. And so I got a video on X, Twitter, where we have done 4 fake outs so far in the past 12 months. And this was one for the other side. Another one was here, third, and then now we got the 4th one. So they're relatively patternistic. But so the thing is, when you have a structure like so in the blue, and then you have a liquidity area like this, you're going to more, I should say right here, because that's where the support is. You're going to retest this. Okay, so this is a fake out in terms of the locality of it, but not in terms of the actual double bottom. I mean, double bottom is it's a much more convicting support structure versus this right here. This was never meant to be a support structure, and you can see the downward momentum on this was very slow, but we had fake outs and things like that. So it's worth keeping that in perspective, because this was never really meant to do this necessarily. Like, of course it can, but when you have a slow grind down like this, that's the supply and the demand trying to figure out a proper price point. And so this was probably, I should say, maybe demand trying to not touch this zone, but it had to anyway. And so it just made it kind of worse and more complicated, right? So that's how we got that. But that's also how you get a fake out as well, because this becomes its own support structure and it fakes out to the downside, retests, and it comes back in. So that's kind of where we're at now. And so I was interpreting this, probably right back here as a fake out, but I actually thought this candle would be a fake out. And then we deviated again, and so I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll fake out even farther, and we did. And so that's where I, personally longed, and I added some other bags as well, like Solana. But that's kind of what we're looking at. So if we kind of zoom into the 4 hour, this is kind of what we got. And so this is the structure I looked at yesterday. We broke above that. And so this is relatively clean. We had our structure. This was a deviation fade. I mentioned that news-based deviations like this serve no merit. Black swan events don't get retested, things like that. I've said a lot of things this past week. In regards to that, we faked out. This was your time to long. When this candle was probably your long candle. If it wasn't, then you retested this. So you had two chances within a 24-hour period, so that's understandable. So that would have been your entry point. So even if you got in, let's say here, you put your structure here below, you'd be sitting okay at about 2. So not the best overall, but still, the momentum has clearly stayed. I personally believe that it stayed in favor of the bulls this whole time. And so now you have a complex structure. You know what? I'm just going to get rid of all this because it's too messy. You have a complicated structure here because this was your initial structure, and we had a series of lows that didn't really make sense. You had the fake out. And so you also got like a trend going on. You actually got 2, but here's the main one I'm interested in. And so this is one of these situations where it could break down. Now, if it was a little bit different, that's your second one if you're curious. I would expect a drop down, and we still could. I'm not saying that we can't. And basically, when the slope is high like this, we do usually get a drop down. But in this particular case, we could get a curling upwards because we're in a weird structure area here. And this is the structure that I'm looking at. We're kind of resistant against this right now, but if we get rid of this and do a fib instead from the top to this bottom, now we're kind of in another weird structure here. We do have a bear divergence as well, so that's another thing on Bitcoin and other assets. We do have a 4 hour bearish divergence, so that's something that we want to look out for. But now we're kind of getting close to this area to where liquidity is starting to be slightly and really that's the case with divergences anyway. Liquidity gets slightly elastic, and so when things become elastic, things tend to come back the opposite way that it came from, which would be down today. So I'm not, and so that's one reason why I suggested yesterday that we might have either a sideways or a downwards play today. And as you can see, we've had, it is mainly break even for today across many assets, or 1% plus or minus. But we've had a pretty decent rejection for the past hour versus relative to the last 24 hours. So you can see that that's starting to play into that, starting to factor into that. So that's basically Bitcoin in a nutshell. I'm personally waiting for a drop here so we can add more, but I don't think anything's significant because I think we could do. Let me just get rid of this here. I think right here is a really good retest point. So this break could mean something, and this would be a great time to short, honestly. When you have a slope that's significantly high, it's a pretty easy short. And so it's actually I hate inverting charts, but it's basically like having a trend line like this on an altcoin, which we've had a lot recently, and that you can just buy the trend. A trend break is very significant. It's typically a very good reward. It's one of the highest rewarding breaks that you can see, and they have very relatively low risk, because if they go back within the trend line, then you can just stop it. I'm always in favor of a trade that has a clear invalidation zone, and that's one of them. Trend lines have clear invalidation zones because if they go back inside the trend, then they're invalidated. That's why I also like deviations, because when deviations occur, we're going to ahead and re-invert this. A deviation like this, I can long this. And so let's say I longed it right here. And so this entire structure becomes a deviation. So this entire thing becomes a deviation. And I'll put this, in that color, teal or whatever. So that's the deviation point. So if the price goes back in this line, I know to cut the trade automatically. And so you could even do it to where you could even enter here. And so you could enter right here, and then this is your deviation point. And as you can see, by the marker here, we did not close back into the teal area. And so even though we could have, and so there's a lot that I just said. There's a lot of details in that. I don't have time for that. That would be like a 10-hour video about looking at wicks and retest, like when, because sometimes a retest needs to happen and is valid. Sometimes a retest is not logical at all. And so one of those are like trend breaks or deviations. Like deviations should not get retested. Black swan events don't get retested. And from the historic data I've seen, and I've looked at data for 8 years now, give or take. So so that's what you got to work with. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with today as well. Do I think this will break down? Yes, I do. Mainly because of the divergence. I would almost think that it's healthy for the bulls for this to break down. And that's another thing. A lot of times a breakdown or a fade isn't necessarily bearish. It's not necessarily bullish. I mean, it is temporarily bearish. That's the thing. I think there is a big difference, and most people don't understand this, but there's a massive difference between being bearish and being temporarily bearish. There's a big difference, because it's one of those things. It's like the whole hodl mentality, right? Like, if you would have bought at hindsight, obviously is 2020, but let's say you could have bought at 4,000 Bitcoin towards the bear market in 2018. That's where I bought. Would you hold that? Looking, even though we went to 69,000, would you still be okay holding that here at 27,000? The answer is yes, honestly. And you can look at it as like, okay, was the run up from 4,000 to 69,000 bullish? Absolutely. Is the run down from 69,000 to 15 bearish? Yes. And now, what about 15,000 to current day at 27,000? Was that bullish or bearish? See, there's a difference between trends and subtrends, and you got to understand that, because sometime, I mean, we had a lot of dips, like the COVID. That was a black swan event, yes, but we even besides that, we had a significant dips on the way from 4,000 to 69,000. And so, would you tell me that those were those isolated bearish market cycle events? I would disagree with you if you said yes, because I look at them as subtrends. And so again, hindsight is 2020, of course. But there is a difference between a trend and a subtrend, and knowing the difference can help you gain extra money or take profits early, or however you want to use that in your strategy. And so that's what you got to work with. So that's Bitcoin currently in a nutshell. I think we're going to go down, but other than that, I don't think we're going to go down, honestly. I think we'll retest here at probably 26,750, but I don't think we'll go back down to 26,500. We might, but I think our final retest point would probably be here at 27,300. So, and that's pretty much it with Bitcoin. I'm going to go on to the Bitcoin divergence and kind of talk about that just a little bit. We are getting some volatility, which is good, but we're going to continue. All right, moving on to the Bitcoin dominance chart. This is what we got here. I actually want to zoom up to the 1 week time frame and take a look here, because this is something I'm going to make a dedicated video of this probably within the next 7 days. But we have this wide, or I should say 1 week trend line that we haven't really, historically, we've never crossed. So it's one of these things. Are we going to cross this? Are we not? I think I can match up some correlations with the run-ups and the market price action, but I won't get into that for this video. But one thing I want to know notice is that the dominance is rising. We did have this trend line right here, but it has not flipped over, and it's okay. This one doesn't necessarily have to, but it has significantly been rising despite the fact that we've had an increase of altcoin price action. Altcoins have been running pretty decently, but Bitcoin has been doing pretty good. So overall, that kind of tells me there's a market shift going to Bitcoin first. And I mentioned this probably about a month ago in my observations that when money exits the market, you know, so when we have a bear market, I should say. I need to backtrack a little bit, so I apologize. When we have like a big bear market, like we did, when we have black swan events like FTX, things like that, the market tends to just kind of die out, and the market's been relatively dead compared to bull markets, for example. But one thing you need to keep in mind is typically, whoever's left is usually whoever's left in the market is usually the people that have been here for the past year or two, or have basically been through it all, right? Been through the entirety of the bear market, and they're still here. Generally speaking, they're not going to leave. Okay, they think that they are probably the next, millionaires or whatever, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. The problem, however, is that nobody really has any extra money. You make money by trading, but in order to do that, you need new money to come in. And so that's the thing. We're not seeing any new money to come in to help elevate the market caps that we have used to been getting. And so that's the situation. So in order to do that, new people need to come in. Now, why is that relevant to Bitcoin dominance? It's relevant because when new money comes in, guess what coin they're probably going to buy the most? It's Bitcoin. Okay. Now that's going to be less so because back in 2017 when I started, a lot of people would buy Bitcoin first, especially when there was Bitcoin pairs. Bitcoin pairs were very popular back then, and I still wish that they were, to be honest with you. So you almost had to buy Bitcoin in order to buy like Link, for example, or LTC. I mean, BTC was a very popular pair back then, and it's not so much now. So anyway, you would have to buy Bitcoin to buy Litecoin in some places. Now, obviously, that has changed and has went to USD, and we kind of seen a parallel aspect of this with Ethereum and DeFi. Like you have to buy Ethereum to be into DeFi, and so same process, right? And so nowadays, I mean, you don't have to buy Bitcoin, but most people probably are going to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana or any of the top assets, right? That's one reason I'm so bullish on Solana too, by the way. It's an upfront center coin. I mean, it's in everybody's face, and there's not really any option but to stare at it all the time, right? And so I think a $20 Solana coin, and I've looked at this here, $20 is a steal right now. And I almost can guarantee in 2 years, people are going to be jealous about this. They're gonna wish they would have bought here. I've already did. I've already did. But here's the thing: ask yourself the question: in 18 months, is Solana gonna be higher or lower than $20? Simple question. Now, I would be hard pressed to believe that more than 1% of you will say it's lower in 18 months. I think there's a great chance it's going to be higher. And even if it is lower, you're not really losing too much potentiality on that, right? Like what? Like, are you going to short that? Like, if it's going to go to zero, some of you may say, "Well, it's going to go zero." Well, short it then. See what I'm saying? Like, you guys probably won't, and I understand why. The high time frame probably wouldn't cover that, but also, there's not a lot of reward in doing so. There's much more potential reward in buying Solana at 20. And I'm not saying to do so, but I think relative to relative to historical price action, $20 is a steal, okay? And a lot of people had a chance to buy even lower than that, like below 10. And I should have bought here. I did not. And I missed that out, and so I ended up buying a bigger stack at about, I think at this candle right here, at about 18. So I'm slightly in profit, not enough to care too much just yet. So we'll see where that goes, but that's relative to Bitcoin dominance because new money is starting to come in, but the dominance is rising. And so right now, I do think I don't want people to neglect Bitcoin versus other assets. So that's one of the main reasons I focus on that one. So anyway, that's Bitcoin. I spent too much time on that already. Going to go to Ethereum and do ETH, USD, ETH, BTC. Then we'll do some alts. All right, so let's go to Ethereum. One thing that I want to focus on, don't want to focus on the weekly too much. This was a short idea that I thought about, but is not something that I discussed. So I'll just get rid of that. So one thing I'm looking at here is the break from this. So we had a pump up here into the blue range. Basically, what I said yesterday in Discord, that a break of this would determine the overall short-term direction. And so far, it's going to the downside. This is a daily. This is 7 hours left to go, so there is still some time to retrace that. And this will be sad to see because Ethereum has a very disappointing structure, honestly, that we have pretty much seen for the past 12 months and even longer. Because, even last July, it had a very nice Adam and Eve structure. And I remember talking about it so exclusively. How that was a great sign that 900 will probably be the bottom, and it probably still is. I have less confidence in that than I do with the the Bitcoin bottom. However, excuse me, but we had the pump up, but to try to, it made me confirm that, so to speak. But then we had the deviation that gave me some doubts, and then we kind of broke back into the range completely, and now we had this fake out. So again, all right, that's a good retest, right? And now we're trying to recover, and now we're not. And so it's a little bit confusing. Ethereum has a lot of weakness overall. It's something that I don't prefer because Ethereum tends to kind of lead the market, so to speak, with altcoins, and is kind of leaving me hanging for now. If we kind of zoom into the 4 hour, we can kind of see this playing out. We have the wedge that I discussed in Knowhere. We have the bearish divergence that we also discussed. We have the breakdown. And so now we're kind of seeing where this is going to play into it. You have the AO that's starting to go into the negative. So that's another sign. The RSI broke down as well. And then the ARIN also, confirmed to be bearish. So this is something that I just test your patience for sure. But unfortunately, it's going down bearish instead of to the bull side. So we'll see how that goes. Until this flips, I can't be interested in it. So that's one thing that we want to look out for. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Bitcoin pair to see how it compares as well versus Bitcoin, to kind of show you the overall strength or the lack thereof with this. And we've had a very large consolidation period really for the past 2 years. And honestly, ever since then is when we started to get into the DeFi section. And so there's a theory that I also have kind of in the back of my mind, I haven't really discussed it, that ever since DeFi came in, it's going to kind of normalize holding Ethereum. We also had the different architecture, I can't think of it offhand, to change Ethereum into, I think it was the Shanghai fork or something like that. And so it kind of plays into that as well. So I do have some doubts that Ethereum will, I do think Ethereum will go to new all-time highs. I don't think that's a question, but I think as far as its profitability versus other coins, I think that will decrease as far as potential. So we'll see where that goes. And it's the same with Bitcoin, by the way. You've been getting less returns over time. Every cycle, you're getting less and less returns. Yes, you are still getting a lot, but even from, the peak, for example, for 2017 was, let's round up to 20,000. It was like 19,900 something. So let's say 20,000. We're only at 27 after 5 years. That's pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. I feel like that's very disappointing, considering how much people talk about how much money you can make off of Bitcoin. And yes, you can, of course. I'm taking a little out of context because after that peak of 20,000, it did go down to 3,200, and then it went to 32,000. So yes, you could have made 10x. I think if you went top to bottom, like I said earlier, from the 4,000 to the let's say 60,000, you could have made a decent amount there. So So that's good. So can you make the same nowadays? So let's say the bottom is the 16,000 that we had. Well, I mean, you'd have to have Bitcoin to be at least 160,000 to kind of make the same profitability. And so we'll see where that goes. I'm not saying I'm wrong, of course. I would love to be right because if I was so wrong, if I wanted to be so right about that, I wouldn't have the Bitcoin that I have. So anyway, I want to compare Ethereum to Bitcoin to see where this goes. And so one of the things that we can do, we could do that, the trend line, but none of that really works, right? So, and that's something that we typically try to do. If you try to line this up here, that also doesn't work, and so nothing really works with that. So we can't really, rely on that, and that's not typically something you want to rely on anyway. One thing I do want to look at here is this structure, actually this whole structure right here, and we can mark it out too. I don't like that teal that much, so I'm going to switch it back to, let's do orange. So as you can see here, we had, so I put this here, so that's not fair, but we had the resistance here turned into support, but then we had an impulse breaker, retested again, broke below, retested again, retested again. So that's one reason I put that there, is because it has a good context for basically the entire price action on the Bitcoin pair since 2017. And so this is where we are here, and so we could retest this, and I think we will. I don't think that's even a question in my opinion. So if we go to the middle, it's going to be about 8%. So I think that's easy to achieve. You can see the volatility rising as we get to the FOMC, which is in 1 hour. So about an hour and a half probably. Excuse me. So that's kind of what I see. But as you notice too, like even though DeFi has started, the Bitcoin value pair hasn't even been close to the levels that you think it would be, right? Because DeFi, you would think it would increase. Everybody's buying Ethereum, so then the value would go up, and that's kind of the opposite. Part of that is the bear market, of course, playing into that. But part of it also is that's just not how it works. And so you think it would lead to more Ethereum having more value over Bitcoin, but it's going to actually have the inverse. And you're going to see that with other things as well. And so, anyway, I just wanted to share that. I think, again, we're going to go probably down here to about 8%. And maybe that could cause it an altcoin rally. We could bounce from there. And that would correlate to the move that we need on the Bitcoin dominance chart. So I'm going to look at that back as well. And so if we go back to here, it's about 4%. About 3.5. Let's just say 4. Let's just say even 5 because we might get a wick or something. So anywhere between 3 to 5% is going to get us to that trend line. So I think it's very possible that we could see Bitcoin rally for the next, 2 to 3 weeks, even a month, and then the Ethereum Bitcoin pair will drop in addition to that, but then it'll bounce. Bitcoin will reject, and then we'll get the alt season that I'm talking about. I have been talking about alt season in Discord, and I have been saying late September, which is going to be pretty much next week. So we'll see how right or wrong I am, but I do think quarter 4 is probably going to be your best quarter as far as altcoins. We'll see where that goes. There's a lot of good prices out there, and there has been some mid time frame bounces, no high time frame just yet. So we'll see where that plays out. But that's Bitcoin dominance. That's Ethereum, Bitcoin pair. We're going to get into some alts. Got some volatility to work with, so we'll kind of play this out as we go. So kind of after I took a small break between there, but now we're getting close enough to the FOMC. I think I'm going to make a part 2 to the Knowhere Market Update. And I'm going to give a quick insight on some of these coins because the volatility may interrupt this as well. But going on the daily I'm going to start with Solana. I like this uptrend right here. We are getting close to this marker right here. So this is where we need to flip. We could reject here, but I'm not relying on that. I really like Solana a lot. I think it's probably one of the best altcoins that you can pick right now for low time frames or high time frames. The best. Had the break of the RSI. AREN is looking like it's about to break as well. AREN already did, or the AO I mentioned, it has not broken, but AREN has. So Sorry, a lot of fumbling today. But this reclaim should work. It's possible that we could reject here. But overall, it looks healthy otherwise. I'm not going to pause this necessarily because of FOMC, but mainly because of expected volatility. I don't think it's going to have a natural impact per se. But I like this structure. It does need to flip this, however, and get out of that $20 range. If it goes down, I am interested to buy, especially at this trend line that is in red right there. So this one, probably about 1860 was where it would probably price at. So XRP is another one. We have this as a long in Knowhere, and this is going pretty good, holding steady. Broke the RSI, and I'm not selling. A lot of people would have sold by now, and I understand that maybe I'm not making enough money with that, but that's okay. I mean, I am making money, but relative to the time, and so that's the thing, right? People think if you can't make $1,000 or more, or if you can't make all your money that you want to make within a 4-hour period, then it's not possible. Well, it's actually more possible to do that with longer time frames. You just don't want to. Okay, you want the dopamine drip. You don't want the money. Well, I want the money. I don't care about dopamine. I care about cash. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm looking at with that. But we do have this structure here. We're at the halfway point with this. I'm going to kind of slide this out right here. And so that price point is at 52 cents. We need to clear it, which we currently are, but we need to close above it. And so we doing so good with that. I'm going to switch to GRT because I mentioned this also in Knowhere Discord. And this is a 3-prong position that I have. I'm interested in this. I've already bought the first 2. I have not bought the third one. But we do have a flip of the RSI. The AL looks good. ARIN is bullish. This looks really good. In addition to that, we have the wedge. So, yes, I do think that we're going to go 2x on this and possibly higher, but we'll see where that goes. I'm pretty bullish on Graph. I think that's probably one of my more emerging ones that look more bullish than others. So, kind of go through that. And it's pretty break even for the day. We had a nice dip, and that has worked pretty well. A couple more, but I'm going to do a part 2, like I said, because I think I rambled too much today. So Aave, and we're getting too close to the meeting. So Aave is another one I'm looking at. But here we have we have really 4 drives down versus this structure here, but it has not broken down yet. So this is one of these things where will it break down? This is actually more of a channel than it is of a divergence. So this will be interesting. So what you want to do here is you want to play the break. If this breaks above this trend line, you want to long that. You do not want to short it. If it goes down here, then it's okay to short, but I would probably wait to buy in at a different level, and this is probably where I would buy. And so about 60, basically I would just round up to $60 to be honest, and then just make the extra stop loss on that, or you don't have to. You could do slightly under 59. I'm trying to make it easier for the videos, so you could do something like that. Very tight stop, more conservative stop. I like the conservative one myself, but you don't need that either. So you could do, I think for this particular trade, I think an aggressive one is probably okay. So, but you also got the hidden div, so that makes me think that we're going to get a range, and so that kind of works out. That's what I got for Aave. I think I'll end it for now. We're getting pretty close to it, so I kind of want to observe more and maybe do a post game kind of thing. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you are staying safe, and I'll see you next time.